Hello everyone. Now we are going to discuss about data validation in Microsoft Excel. So in Microsoft Excel, we use data validation to restrict the type of the values in Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to explain this by using different examples that will help you to understand what is data validation in Microsoft Excel. Okay, so let's start. So first of all, open Microsoft Excel and then go to Data tab and then select Data Validation. Data Validation, and then data validation dialog box is displayed like this. So data validation dialog box has the three tabs: settings, input message, and the error alert. So let's start from settings tab. In settings tab, we are going to set validation criteria. Validation criteria. So in validation criteria, you have to specify the type of values allowed in cell. Okay. We select those cells on which we want to enforce or we want to apply data validation, and then after choosing the type of values allowed in those cells, if you choose any value, it means you restrict no value. All values are allowed. Whole numbers, it means you restrict other values. Only whole numbers are allowed in those cells. The same as decimal. List, it means you have a list of values a user will choose from. Date, if it is the type of value to be entered is a date. Time, if it is time. You can also specify the length of text. So based on our example, we have a simple table which consists of two columns: employee names and the start time, the time they start the job, which means the value to be entered here is time. So that's why here we are going to choose time. So the job for those employees will start from a given time and ends at a given time. So we are going to choose a time which is between two times: start time and end time. Start time, end time. So suppose the job must start at 8 a.m. and ends at 5 p.m. So which means the only time which is valid to be entered in this column is a time which is between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Otherwise, it will be considered as invalid time. So now after settings tab, we have this another tab called the input message. In input message, we can type here the message that will be displayed when a user clicked on one of those cells. This is the message that will be displayed. So the role of this message is to guide a user, to guide someone who is entering data in those cells. So let's call this message info, and then we guide a user to know what are values, what are data are allowed in these cells. Let's see, type this. For example, the time must be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. So the title of this message is info. It is information. We inform a user about the valid data, and then we go to error alert. So this is the message that will be displayed when a user has entered invalid time, the time which is not in that period of time, which is not between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. So you can choose the icon that will be displayed on the error message. You can use the stop, warning, or information. So these are different icons. So let's use, for example, stop. The title, let's call the title of this message error. So the error message, please enter the time between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. and then click OK. So now, if a user tries to clicks on one of those cells, the info message will be displayed. So if a user tries to input an invalid time, for example, let's take the time which is before 8 p.m. For example, 7 a.m. the time before 8 a.m. So the error message will be displayed. Please enter the time between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Another invalid time is a time which is after 5 p.m. For example, 6 p.m. This is invalid time also. But if you try to input 8 a.m., this is valid. 9 a.m., this is valid. 2 p.m. valid. 5 p.m. valid. 4 p.m. valid. 12, like this. So this is the first example showing you how you can validate data in Microsoft Excel. Another typical example is to specify the type of values to be entered in cells also. So let's select those cells where we are going to enter marks of those students, and we want marks of those students to be between 0 and 100. For example, whole numbers between 0 and 100. So as usual, we go to data tab and then select data validation, and we start setting our condition. We start from settings tab. We select whole numbers between 0, which is a minimum, and the maximum must be 100. So any marks outside this interval will be considered as invalid. And then we go to input message info, marks must be between 0 and 100, and then error message warning. Let's choose another icon, error, please marks must be between 0 and 100, and then click OK. So any value which is outside this interval 0 and 100 will be considered as invalid. For example, if I try to input -5, this will be considered as invalid. 110 will be considered as invalid. But other values like 90, 80, 50, 40, 30, 70, 60, those are valid values. So in this data validation, the most used data validation is to select data from a given list. For example, for our employees, we have different position. For example, IT manager, CEO, analyst, for example, we have those positions we want to attribute to each employee in our table. So as usual, we select those cells, and then we go to data validation. From settings tab, we choose list. The list, then we specify the source of data in the list. We click here, and then we select this list. After selecting this list, we press enter. So after pressing enter, our list is constructed, and then we go to next tab, input message. The input message is info. Select the position from drop down list, and then the error alert is let's say invalid position, and then OK. So here a user will enter only those positions from a list. IT manager, for example, analyst, CEO, analyst, and so on. So thank you for watching this video. Keep in touch for more videos on Microsoft Excel. Ciao.